Every house hides a secret, but some roofs cover sins that were never meant to be revealed. The old Haveli of Begum Shaista stood in the heart of Rawalpindi like a proud, stubborn relic of time. Its walls, aged and cracked, whispered tales of honor, betrayal, and revenge if only someone dared to listen. Inside those fading walls, the household functioned like a stage play. Everyone had a role. Everyone wore a mask. Begum Shaista, the Iron Lady, ruled her house with silent glances and loud traditions. She believed in family honor more than family itself. Her 3 sons, Asif, Nadim, and the youngest Zubair, obeyed without question, at least on the surface. Asif's wife, Shahana, was the perfect daughter-in-law to the world. Always smiling, always serving, but her eyes carried the sharpness of someone who had seen too much. Nadim's wife, Rabia, was a soft-spoken woman with trembling hands and hidden bruises. Zubair was unmarried, charming and dangerously curious. And then there was Aliyah. Not born into the family, but dragged into it. Aliyah was the orphan niece of Begum Shaista's deceased brother. She had arrived 3 years ago, with just one suitcase, a faded photograph of her parents, and a silence that didn't belong to a teenager. From the first night she stepped into the Havli, strange things began to happen. Doors creaked open without wind. The chandeliers swayed in silence. And at night, sometimes around 3 a.m., she heard it. A knock. Not on her door, but under her bed. That night, it happened again. Talk. 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 She sat upright in bed, holding her breath. The sound was clear, deliberate. She pulled the blanket tighter and whispered, "Who's there?" Silence. Then, a whisper, faint, almost not there. "Aliyah." She jumped to the floor, heart pounding. No one was there. She looked under the bed empty. She ran to the switch. The light flickered twice before turning on. Her breath slowed, but her fear didn't. She wasn't imagining this. Someone, or something, was trying to talk to her. The next morning at breakfast, she looked at everyone differently. Zubair, sipping tea, noticed her stare. "Didn't sleep?" "I did. Just strange dreams." "Dreams?" Begum Shaista looked up sharply. "Don't indulge in those. They make you weak." Everyone fell silent. Everyone, except Shahana, who met Aliyah's eyes with a strange smile. "Dreams are never just dreams in this house. You'll learn." Later that day, Aliyah wandered into the storage room at the back of the Havli. Dust coated everything like snow. She wasn't sure why she entered, only that something pulled her. She stepped onto an old carpet. Beneath it, the wood creaked unnaturally. She bent down and lifted it, a loose floorboard. Inside, an old diary. Its pages were fragile, its ink faded, but the first line made her skin crawl. "If you're reading this, then the curse has chosen you." The rain had stopped, but the air inside the house still felt wet, as if the walls themselves were sweating secrets. Farah stood silently by the window, watching her son Daniel play on the rug, the same rug where she had once lost her innocence. The memories crawled back without permission, every corner of the house holding a piece of her past. "Ami, look!" Daniel pointed excitedly at something behind the curtain. Farah's heart skipped. Her throat tightened. "What is it?" Daniel giggled and ran to the curtain. "There's a girl here." Farah rushed forward. "What girl?" He pulled back the heavy cloth. Nothing. Just a cold window, foggy with breath marks. Small breath marks. Farah's voice dropped. "Daniel, don't joke like that." "I'm not joking." His face turned serious. She was right here, wearing white. Her face was sad. Farah grabbed his hand tightly and pulled him back. "No more playing near the windows." From the hallway, footsteps echoed. Not heavy like a man's, but light, hesitant. "Jamila Baji?" Farah called out. No reply, just a distant whisper, barely audible. "Get out, before she returns." Farah froze. She heard it. She was sure. But Jamila entered casually, holding a tray of tea. "You called me, Farah Bibi?" Farah blinked fast. "Did you say something?" Jamila looked puzzled. "No." Farah didn't argue. She just took the tray and nodded. but her hands trembled. Downstairs, Dadi sat in her armchair. Her silver bangles clinked softly as she flipped pages of an old Quran. Without lifting her gaze, she said, "She's back, isn't she?" Farah turned sharply. "Who?" Dadi didn't respond immediately. She simply continued reciting, "The one who never left." Later that night, the house grew eerily silent. Danielle slept curled beside Farah, but Farah couldn't. Her ears stayed alert. The wind outside whistled through the cracked balcony. Suddenly, a thud, then another, from upstairs. She got up quietly, wrapped a shawl around herself, and stepped out. The hallway was long. The lights flickered. One bulb buzzed faintly. At the end of the corridor was room 7, the one that was always kept locked. But the door was open, slightly. A strange perfume hung in the air. Not modern, not pleasant. Something earthy. Rotting flowers mixed with burning wood. Farah's feet moved without her permission. She pushed the door gently. The room was untouched. Dust coated the furniture. But on the mirror, someone had drawn a name with their finger. "Merunisa," Farah gasped. That was her mother's name. But her mother had died 12 years ago. On this very floor, in this very room. The air turned cold. Behind her, the door slammed shut. The room had no lights. Only moonlight poured in from the half-open window, cutting pale shapes across the furniture. Farah stood frozen. She turned back to the door. It was sealed shut, as if someone had locked it from the outside. She swallowed her fear. Is this a dream? But the cold air said otherwise. She looked again at the mirror. The name Merunisa was still written in the dust. Suddenly, the mirror began to fog up. From the inside, a new line began appearing underneath the name, letter by letter. "I'm still here." Farah's knees weakened. Her breath caught in her throat. "No," she whispered, backing away. But her back touched something soft. Someone. She turned, and no one was there. Only a faint sound now. A lullaby. A broken, slow tune. Like a mother once sang to a child. But it was off-key. Painful. As if laced with grief. Farah clutched her chest and ran to the door. She banged it hard. "Open! Anyone! Jamila! Amma!" Then silence. The air shifted. The sound of someone dragging a cloth on the floor echoed behind her. She turned slowly. A veil, an old, torn, white veil, was slowly being dragged across the room by invisible hands. Farah screamed. Downstairs, Jamila dropped the tray of cups as the sound echoed through the house. Daniel woke up in his bed, gasping, "Mama!" And Daddy sat up in her chair, her eyes wide. "She's in room 7. Daddy whispered. She opened the door. She reached for her old wooden cane and stood up. "She's not ready yet." Jamila ran upstairs, her dupatta half falling. The hallway was dark. Only the distant screams echoed. She reached room 7, tried the knob. Locked, but a voice from inside whispered, "Don't open it." Jamila stepped back, stunned. The voice was her own. Inside, Farah stood trembling. The veil had stopped near her feet, and then a shadow emerged in the mirror. A woman, her face hidden by hair, dressed in white, floating, not walking. Her head slowly lifted, revealing Farah's own face, tears streaming down. "Mama?" she whispered. The mirror shattered. Suddenly, the door flew open. Dadi stood there. Behind her, Jamila held a lamp, trembling. Dadi walked into the room calmly, stepped past Farah, and looked at the broken mirror. She whispered verses under her breath, her voice firm. Then she turned to Farah. "You shouldn't have come here," she said coldly. "Not yet." Farah looked at her, heart racing. "What was that? Why is her name here? What happened to my mother?" Dadi's eyes darkened. "She didn't die, the way you were told." A gust of cold wind blew out the lamp. Darkness fell again, huge. Some doors stay closed for a reason. Once opened, you can't undo what's been seen. The next morning arrived, but the air inside the house still felt heavy, as if night had left something behind. Farah hadn't slept. She sat curled up on the edge of the bed, her eyes wide and red. Everything replayed in her mind: the name on the mirror, the veil, the voice that sounded like hers, and Dadi's haunting words. "She didn't die the way you were told." Jamila knocked gently and stepped inside. She looked at her cousin with cautious eyes. "I brought you tea," she said. Farah didn't answer. She was staring at the floor, at a strange symbol scratched into the old wood. A circle, with something inside it. A lock? "Jamila," Farah whispered. "Who was Merunisa really?" Jamila hesitated. Her hands trembled as she set the cup down. "She was your mother," she finally said. "And she was the light of this house, until the darkness came." "What darkness?" Jamila looked away. "She was different after marrying your father." She stopped laughing. She would walk around the house at night, murmuring things. She started drawing those same circles everywhere. Farah's chest tightened. "Did she hurt anyone?" "No, she only hurt herself." Farah's eyes widened. She locked herself in room 7, and after 3 days, she was found hanging from the ceiling." The cup slipped from Farah's hand. No, that's not what Papa told me. He lied," said a deep voice. They both turned. Dadi stood at the door. Her face was like stone. "You should never have come back, Farah. This house doesn't forget, and it doesn't forgive." Farah stood, defiant. "I deserve to know the truth." Dadi walked in slowly. She handed Farah a small dusty object, a red leather diary. Merunisa wrote this in her last days. That night, Farah sat alone and opened the diary. Each page was stained with age and something darker, maybe ink, maybe tears. The first line read, "If anyone finds this, I pray they don't judge me before they understand me." Page after page, Merunisa wrote about voices she began hearing, shadows she started seeing, and the feeling that someone was watching her, always watching her from room 7. One passage stood out. "The veil I once wore is no longer mine. Something else wears it now. Something that wants to live through me, another. He thinks I'm mad, but I'm not. I know the difference between madness and possession." Farah shut the diary. Her heart was thudding. Possession? Was her mother possessed? She stepped outside to get air. The hallway was dark. A faint sobbing sound echoed from the stairs. She moved quietly toward it and saw Daniel, her little cousin, sitting alone, crying. "Daniel?" He looked up. His eyes were completely black. Then he smiled, and in Merunisa's voice he whispered, "You opened the door, Farah. Now I can come home." Farah screamed. But when she blinked, Daniel was normal again. He looked at her, confused. "Why are you crying, Baji?" Back in her room, Farah stared at the mirror again. This time, it was clean. But behind her reflection, a second figure stood. A woman, wearing a torn white veil, her face covered. Some spirits don't want to be remembered. They want to be reborn. The morning brought no comfort. Farah's eyes were hollow, the diary still clutched in her hand. The entry from last night echoed in her mind. Something else wears the veil now. She didn't know what haunted her more, her mother's torment, or her own unraveling sanity. Was she imagining things? Or was Merunisa still here? Downstairs, the house was unusually quiet. The birds outside had stopped singing. Even the ceiling fan had gone still. Farah walked into the hallway. Jamila stood at the kitchen entrance, pale, her voice low. "Dadi's not in her room." "What do you mean?" "She didn't sleep in her bed, and the back door is unlocked." Farah rushed to the backyard, where the old well sat behind thorny bushes. Something was written on the stones surrounding it in a chalky red substance. A single name, Merunisa. Suddenly, a voice from behind. "You shouldn't say that name out loud." It was Asim. He looked shaken, like he hadn't slept for days. "I saw her too," he whispered. "Last night, in the hallway." Farah stared at him, confused. "Saw who?" He didn't answer, just pointed to her hands. She looked down and saw blood on her fingertips. Panicked, she rushed back to her room, breathing hard. She washed her hands over and over, but the red wouldn't go. It wasn't real. It couldn't be real. Her thoughts spun until she remembered the floorboard, the strange circle beneath the rug. She pulled the rug aside. There it was, the scratched-in symbol. Right in the center, a tiny keyhole. Farah ran to her closet and dumped out a box of old items. Jewelry, papers, an old wooden box with her initials FM inside. Buried under yellowing letters, a rusted key. She didn't know how she had it, but her hand moved on its own. She fit the key into the floor. It clicked. The board lifted open with a groan. A deep, narrow space revealed itself. Inside was a metal container, tightly sealed. She pulled it out and opened the lid. The smell hit her first old fabric, dust, and something else, something rotting. Inside, a white veil, torn at the edges, stained with something brown-red. Mehrunisa's veil, wrapped around it more pages, torn from a second diary. She opened them with trembling fingers. I wore it only once after the dreams began. The veil whispered things to me. It showed me how to open the door, not the front door, the door beneath the house. That's where she lives, the real one, the one who calls herself me. Farah dropped the pages. Her head spun. There was another door? Beneath the house? Suddenly, bang! The window behind her slammed shut. The mirror cracked. Just a hairline fracture, but straight across her reflection's eyes. Farah stumbled back and heard something beneath the floorboards, breathing. She grabbed her phone. No signal, no Wi-Fi. Even the time was stuck. 3:33 a.m. In daylight? Impossible. She rushed to find Dadi, or Jamila, or anyone. But the house felt like it had changed. The walls were colder, the air denser. And as she passed the hallway, she heard a whisper from room 7. "Come in, Betty," her mother's voice. She turned the knob. Room 7 creaked open. Dust filled the air. And there, on the far wall, a portrait she'd never seen before. Mehrunisa, wearing the same white veil. Only this time, the veil had no shadow, and Mehrunisa's eyes had been scratched out. Farah stood frozen. The portrait of Mehrunisa stared at her eyeless and silent, and yet, something about it watched her. She stepped back. The diary pages in her hand trembled, as if alive in her grip. She lives beneath the house. She wears my face. She steals the voice of those I love. Farah turned and fled from room 7. Down the hallway. Her breath sharp. Her heartbeat louder than her footsteps. As she passed the staircase, something caught her eye. A small, almost invisible gap in the wooden floor, behind the grandfather clock. She knelt down, brushed away the dust. A narrow panel. She wedged her fingers in and, with one hard pull, it creaked open. A hidden latch, with a rope handle. Her instincts screamed, no, but her hand pulled anyway. The floor groaned, and then a square door opened, revealing a narrow staircase descending into blackness. Farah stood above it, heart thudding in her chest. The air rising from below was cold, heavy, wet. She turned on her phone's flashlight. It flickered, then steadied. Step by step, she began to descend. Every creak beneath her feet sounded like a scream. At the bottom, the air changed completely. It felt old, like the breath of someone long buried. She reached a small bricked hallway. A single lantern hung from a chain, swinging lightly, even though there was no wind. And at the end of the passage, a door, black, wooden, with symbols carved into it. Mehrunisa's name etched in Urdu across the top, and something else underneath. Do not open. She reached for the knob. Suddenly a hand gripped her shoulder. She screamed, spun around. It was Asim. He looked pale, terrified. "What are you doing here?" she asked. "I followed you," he whispered. "You weren't safe." He looked past her at the door. "You can't open that." "Why not?" "Because she's not dead." Farah felt her knees weaken. She's what? Asim stepped closer. You're not ready to know what Dadi buried down here. What Nana Sahib kept hidden after he vanished. What made your mother go mad? He pointed to the carvings. She wore that veil. Just once. After that, she was never the same. Farah looked at him, confused. Wait, how do you know all this? Suddenly, the lantern above them blew out. Darkness swallowed them. Asim grabbed her hand. Run! But it was too late. The door behind them, the one they came through, slammed shut. They were trapped in pitch black. And then, from behind the forbidden door, tap, tap, tap. Then bang! The door shook violently. Dust fell from the ceiling. And then, silence. Farah's phone flickered back to life. The time? 3:33 a.m. Again, still, her light flickered across the wall behind them. Something written in chalk. She who removes the veil must wear it. Farah touched her neck. The veil she found upstairs was no longer in her hand. It was now wrapped around her shoulders. Asim stepped back from her, eyes wide. Farah, your eyes. What? He whispered, voice cracking. They're turning white. Asim, what's happening to me? Farah clutched at the veil now tightly wrapped around her shoulders, trembling. Her heart pounded like a trapped bird's wings. Asim backed away. I saw her eyes. They were white, no pupils, just like hers. Whose? He hesitated. The woman in room 7. Suddenly, the underground door behind them creaked again. Only this time, it opened. Not fast, but with the agonizing slowness of something ancient waking up. Dust rose. Cold air spilled out. And then, nothing. Just darkness. Farah's light flickered toward the open doorway. And then, a long shadow crept across the floor. Not walking, crawling. Asim whispered, voice hoarse. Don't move. But Farah was pulled. Not physically. Her mind felt drawn forward. Something about the darkness beyond that door. It called her. And in her ears, a voice like rustling leaves began to chant. She sees through your eyes now. She walks with your breath. She will wear your soul. Suddenly, she was inside the room. She didn't remember walking in. She blinked, and she was there. A large circular chamber, walls lined with mirrors. But the mirrors didn't reflect her. They reflected her. Marunisa, the woman in the portrait, standing tall, dressed in black, veil over her face. Each mirror showed her from a different angle. One smiling, one weeping, one with her mouth wide open, screaming silently. Farah looked down at her own hands. They were not her own. Old, dry, scarred. She screamed, spun around. Asim was gone. The doorway was gone. She was alone in the room of mirrors, and then they began to crack. One by one, tiny web-like lines spreading across each reflection. Crack, 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 crack. The images twisted, warped, and then they began to bleed. Thick, black, oozing blood poured from the glass, and then from the floor, and then a voice from the walls. You put on my veil, child. You took what was meant to stay buried. Farah backed up, slipping in the blood-like liquid, her breathing ragged. Now you will remember what they forgot. You will carry the curse. You will become the next. The word was unintelligible, like a whisper from another language. But Farah understood one thing. She was becoming someone else. Suddenly, a crack of light. From the corner of the room, it was Asim, pulling a hidden lever. A trapdoor opened beneath her. She fell, screamed, and landed back in the hallway upstairs. She gasped, sitting upright. Asim beside her. Are you okay? He asked, checking her eyes. They were normal again, but Farah didn't answer. She was holding something in her lap, something she didn't pick up. A photograph, sepia-toned, faded. It was a picture of her grandmother, Mehrunisa, and standing beside her was Farah, as a child. But it couldn't be. She had never met Mehrunisa, had she? She turned the photo around. Written in old ink, it said, "My daughter Farah, 1987. Her hands shook. She was born in 2001. Farah sat in the dim light of her bedroom, the photograph clutched tightly in her hands. Her name, her face, standing next to Mehrunisa. But she wasn't born until 2001. How? Why? Who? Downstairs, the house was quiet again. Asim had fallen asleep on the couch, drained from the madness of the day. But Farah couldn't sleep. Not now. She went to the attic. Her mother's storage boxes were still up there, dusty, untouched, full of secrets. She pulled open one marked old family photos. Inside were dozens of albums. One by one, she flipped through them, looking for anything, and then she froze. There it was again. Another picture. Mehrunisa and Farah. Same girl, same face, different year. 1986. She flipped again. Same face. Each year further back. She wasn't just in one photo. She was in all of them. Suddenly, her mother's voice pierced the silence behind her. "You weren't supposed to see those." Farah spun around. Her mother stood at the attic door, hair unkempt, eyes glassy. Farah stepped forward, holding the photo. "Ami, what is this? Who is this girl? Why do I look like her?" Her mother didn't answer right away, just stared, and then sat down on the wooden attic steps, visibly trembling. "You were never supposed to know. You're not the first, Farah. You're the fourth." Farah's mind reeled. "What are you talking about?" Her mother's voice cracked. "The women in our bloodline are cursed. Each generation, one girl is born, wearing her face. Mehrunisa's face. We give her the same name, Farah." Farah backed away. "No, that doesn't make sense." Her mother nodded slowly. "That's why we moved here. That house was hers. You were drawn to it, weren't you? The veil? The portraits? Because you've worn them all before." Farah whispered, "I've lived before?" Her mother looked away. "And you've died before." A wind stirred through the attic, though no windows were open. The temperature dropped. Farah clutched her arms. "You should have told me. You should have told me what I am." Her mother stood. "No one ever listens. Not even your last self." Farah's voice shook. "What do you mean?" Her mother stared at her, eyes no longer afraid, but resigned. "Because I've been here before too. And you always die before the 10th day." The attic lights flickered. Footsteps echoed in the hallway below. But they were not Asim's. Slow, heavy, dragging. Farah moved to the attic window and peeked down. A woman was walking through the front door. No keys, just opened and walked in. Tall, veiled, wearing black. She held something in her hand. Farah's heartbeat stopped. It was the same photograph, burning. The woman tilted her head up, looking right at Farah's window. Even from a distance, Farah could see the face beneath the veil. It was her own. Farah stumbled back from the attic window, her breath coming in shallow gasps. She had seen many impossible things in the last few days, but this was beyond impossible. That woman, that thing, walking through their house. It wasn't just wearing her face. It was her face, her expression, her eyes, but dead, empty, timeless. Her mother didn't even flinch. She just muttered under her breath, "She found you faster this time." Farah clutched her mother's arm. "Tell me what's happening. Who is she? Why does she look like me?" Her mother's eyes filled with something between grief and warning. "That is the Farah who never left this house. Your third self. The one who didn't listen. The one who stayed after the 10th night." Farah's heart pounded. "And what does she want now?" Her mother looked down. "To make you stay too." Downstairs, the front door creaked shut. The house was no longer silent. There were footsteps in the kitchen. Slow, careful, searching. Farah's phone buzzed in her pocket. She fumbled it open. A message from Asim. "Don't come downstairs. She's not me. She's wearing my face too. She blinked in horror. How could? She typed back furiously. Where are you? Another reply came instantly. In the storeroom. Locked inside. Don't trust anyone's voice. Not even mine. The attic light flickered again, and then the voice came. Soft, calm, kind. Farah? Sweetheart? It's me. Asim. I need you. Come down. Farah and her mother froze. That voice was perfectly Asim's. Even the slight stutter when he was scared, but they both knew. It wasn't him. She mimics, her mother whispered. That's how she hunts. One voice at a time. Farah's throat was dry. Why me? Why us? Her mother leaned closer. Because Merunisa was the first to open the roof. Farah blinked. What roof? Her mother whispered. The one above this house. The spiritual veil. She took it off. She let them in. A sharp sound rang out from below. Something metal dragging across tiles. A butcher knife? No. A rusted iron veil pin. Farah knew the sound. She had dreamt of it. It wasn't a dream. It was a memory. Suddenly, the attic trapdoor snapped open with such force that it banged against the ceiling. A pale, cold hand reached up blindly, groping for the edge. Farah gasped. Her mother pulled her back. But then, the hand stopped, frozen, as if sensing something. A deep voice, no Asim's, not anyone's, rose from the shadows. You've crossed the 9th. She remembers now. There is no 10th. The hand retreated. Silence. Then the attic door slammed shut. Her mother exhaled shakily. It's begun. Farah turned to her. What has? Her mother looked her in the eye. The countdown. You have one night. To remember who you were, or become her forever. Farah stared at the dusty photos again. So many versions of herself, so many unfinished lives, but only one chance left to end it, and only one person who might hold the truth. Merunisa, the original, the first, the one buried deep in the forbidden graveyard, behind the house. Midnight had passed. Farah stood in the backyard, staring at the broken gate that led to the old graveyard hidden behind the house. This was the place no one talked about. A forgotten patch of land, overrun by thorns and shadows, and buried somewhere beneath it was Merunisa, the first, the original, the beginning of all this horror. The wind whispered through the neem trees as she stepped into the darkness, her mother's old lantern in hand. The flame flickered wildly, as if resisting the path. Every instinct in Farah's body screamed to go back, but she knew this was the final piece, and time was running out. The deeper she walked, the more the air changed, heavy, thick, as if memories hung in it like fog. She passed broken stones, graves with no names, and then she saw it. A grave with a shattered headstone, covered in blackened rose petals. The name was almost gone, but faintly it read, Merunisa, 1892. Farah knelt. You started this, didn't you? You took off the veil. You let her in. The ground beneath the grave creaked. Suddenly, the lantern went out. Not from wind, but from breath. Cold breath. Farah turned and froze. Standing behind her was herself, the doppelganger, the dead-eyed Farah, no longer hiding, no longer pretending, just watching. With hunger. You're too late, the thing whispered. This grave doesn't keep her. It keeps you. Before Farah could run, the grave split open. Hands, dozens of them, rotting, clawing from the earth, not pulling her in, dragging something out. From the grave rose a figure, half decayed, half alive, with a face Farah had never seen, and yet recognized instantly. Merunisa, but not just a corpse, a soul trapped in centuries of pain. She looked at Farah, her voice echoing through the dirt. You all ran, lied, hid behind names, but you forgot. I was the first. I never left. I waited. The house isn't cursed. The daughters are, until one of you remembers and pays. Farah screamed and stepped back, but the dead Farah grabbed her. It's your turn, her mother's voice echoed in the wind. Don't speak to her. Don't answer her questions, but Farah couldn't help it. What do you want from me? Mehrunisa smiled. To make it stop. To pass it on. To name you. Suddenly, the grave roared with fire. Flames without heat. Visions without shape. The memories of every daughter that came before. All twisted. All silenced. And then, the voice of the house itself. Low. Ageless. Bayhijab Chhat Talay Raaz wohi samajta hai. Jo kabi chat parchad kar utranahi. The roof. The veil. It was never the house. It was her. Farah. She was the veil. And if she stayed another night, she would become part of it. Forever. She turned and ran. Through thorns. Through shadows. The grave collapsing behind her. Mehrunisa's scream rising into the night like a storm. She reached the back door just as the sky began to pale. Her mother was waiting. Did she name you? Farah shook her head. Barely. Her mother embraced her tightly. Then there's still time. The next morning, the house looked normal again. Breakfast on the table, sunlight through the curtains. But the mirror in Farah's room had one new crack, right across her reflection's eye. And when she blinked, the reflection didn't. Zoya has only touched the surface. The real danger is still hidden. What's buried in this house isn't just a secret. It's waiting and watching. In episode 2, the house starts to answer. And it's not human. Subscribe to Funny Fun. Hit the bell. Don't miss episode 2. Thanks for watching episode 1. Hope you like this episode. Tomorrow, we'll release episode 2.